Hi, this is Mrs. Anderson, and today I wanted to explain to you your social problem paragraph that you're going to start to focus on this week. And the whole idea of this paragraph is to merge your book with your research. So why are we writing this paragraph again? Well, one of the reasons why we're writing this is because we've been talking about perception versus reality in this unit, and we know the authors have selected a topic that they perceive as problematic, but now you get to determine if it is accurate to what we really see in the world around us. So now that you've done some research on your topic, you are more equipped to answer this question. So how can we write about our novels and our research? Well, the clearer structure that we used, we know can already be used to write about two different works. We saw this with Part-Time Indian, where you included that in your essay, a discussion of the novel and of a short story. But in this case, what we're going to be doing is using one piece of evidence from your book and the second piece of evidence from your research. No, we are not reinventing the wheel. I'm not asking you to go out and find new research. The hope is that you can use the research from your social problem research encyclopedia template. So here's your thesis for this. Notice that you are starting with the full name of the author and then saying that the author accurately reflects the reality of whatever your social problem is here as a social problem. He or she, you pick the pronoun based on the author, shows this social problem through the character of blank, and you can pick any character from your book. So here are some sample thesis statements. Notice that all of these come from Part-Time Indian. I didn't want to use any from your literature circle books because, come on, I want you to do your own work. So notice that for the first one, this student chose to focus on alcoholism, and the character that shows that social problem is Junior. And the second one, they are focusing on eating disorders, and the character focus is Penelope. And the third one, they're focusing on domestic abuse, and their supporting point uses the character of Rowdy. So what does the rest of the paragraph look like? Well, you've got to start with your claim, and then your first lead-in is going to have context and speaker for a quote from the book. The first evidence should be a cited quote from the book, and your first reasoning is going to be proving the quote from the book exhibits the social problem. At that point, you'll be transitioning to the research. Your second lead-in will give context for the quote that is research. Your second evidence is going to be the research, and your final reasoning / overall reasoning is the place where you're talking about the book and the research to confirm the similarity or be clear about that the problem has been accurately reflected. Okay, now again, I just want to repeat before you start to panic, you don't have to find a new quote. You've already done research with your social problem research encyclopedia templates. So use one of those as sources. And my idea is to send you to the facts or the statistic link in order to prove the reality of your social problem. Now, again, people say, okay, but if I have a quote that's coming from research, how do I write a lead-in for that? It's not that much different from what you normally do for a lead-in, except for in this case, you're going to have the author of the institute, the organization that provided the research, discuss the authors or the institute's qualifications, and any additional context. Was your quote a response to a study, a response to an interview question, published in a journal, an article on an organization's website? So you give the basic facts so that people can understand where your research is coming from. So then you may want to know, what do you do in the reasoning or the overall reasoning after I give the research quote? It's not different than other reasonings you've done in the past. You're going to find word picks from your earlier evidence and your research evidence to prove that the reality of the problem in society is similar to what is reflected in the book. And as an added skill from last week, you are going to have a bibliography with this assignment. You're going to have two sources, your Lit Circle book and your research source. Now, sometimes people start to panic and say, oh, I don't know how to do a bibliography for a book. You're going to need the following information. I'm sure you already know your author's last name and the author's first name. You know the title of the book. The only two things that you may need to look for are the publisher, and my advice is look on the spine of the book. The spine is the part that you see when it's on a bookshelf. And publishers like their names on the spine because everyone can see that they are then responsible for publishing the book. It's visual, it's right there. So look on the spine for the company's name. And then to find the most recent copyright date, what you want to do is you want to look on the back side of the title page. Go with the most recent date that you can find. So what does a book bibliography entry look like? I have a sample here. Now notice when you get to this side, I had to pull the publisher down here because I'm writing in a column right now, so my word wrap is going to automatically start working because I can't fit publisher in this space. You don't need to stop at title of book if you have more room. I didn't have any more room, which is why my hanging indent is here, and then I'm starting with the publisher there. So here's a sample entry that comes from Part-Time Indian, and notice that it goes a lot further across the page. Notice again where the punctuation goes and the kind of punctuation that you're using, and that the title of the book has to be italicized. So do the same bibliography rules apply? Yes. You have to use hanging indents, you have to double space, and you have to put your entries in alphabetical order according to what's listed first in the entry. And in most cases, that's either the author's last name, and if there's not an author, it's going to be the article title. The only catch in this is if the article title has a, an, or the, you ignore those words in your alphabetizing and go with whatever word is next. So if I found an article called The Perils of Alcoholism, I'd alphabetize by the P and not the T and the. So here's a sample bibliography that I wanted to show you. Notice that the second source is going to look a little odd because it's from a journal, which is not something that we've done bibliographies for. So it has its own special form. But what I wanted to show you is that Alexi would be the first source because the second one starts with a C. So you always have to go in alphabetical order. And notice there are hanging indents as well. So what does a finished paragraph look like? Well, bingo, here you go. Notice here the first evidence is coming from Sherman Alexie, and then we transition with this sentence into medical journals and the evidence that this person found from a journal that discusses, it's a medical journal that discusses alcoholism treatment. The evidence, of course, is cited as well. We want to know where you're getting this from, just like where you got the quote from your book. And notice in the overall reasoning, not only are they picking words from this quote, linear relationship is something that comes in this research evidence, but they're also using the freaking booze, which is coming from the Part-Time Indian evidence. So as I indicated earlier, if there's an author, you put the author's last name in parentheses. If there is no author, you put the article title within quotation marks. So the example that I gave you in the sample has an author, but if it didn't, instead of putting those last two names there, I would have put the title and the article in parentheses. And you don't need to worry about a page number for this since your internet sources would not have pages. So this assignment with the sample is on Schoology for you to look at in this week's folder. However, you can also find the rubric for the assignment there as well. But there is an additional task for you now at this point. I have that sample paragraph as part of a quiz on Google Forms. It's not a real quiz, it's a practice quiz to see if you understand the different pieces and the parts of this paragraph before you embark on your own writing quest. So please take this this Google quiz, didn't want to scare you there, and embark on your own outlining process for this essay. Good luck.